This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different Q's.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Corenna Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 with Republican gubernatorial candidate Jonathan Bush. So do you think the constitutional officers should be voted by the public instead of through the legislature?
Well, of course, when I'm governor, I'm going to say the governor should appoint them so I can get my team to do what I want. But right now, we're trapped in that legislature appointment process. And we've got these, I don't know if it goes in through the nose when you get, I don't know whether it's city limits or when you walk into the Cross building, but they get that Augusta virus. And suddenly, they need to beauty contest about government encroachment all over the country and abandon the little businesses that are hung up in Maine. It drives me nuts. Get to work right here at home. All these businesses did the elaborate permit dance, got everything they needed, and one NIMBY sued the state and held them up, and now they're dying on the vine. Capital, leadership, all suffering because one person decided to tie up a business they didn't like in the courts, and the state is not doing its job. When the state says yes and someone overrules it, the state goes and defends its decision, and it's not happening in Maine. I don't know what he's doing out there in every state but ours, but he's got to come on home and defend our laws here now.
Speaking of Augusta, if elected as governor, how do you plan on making progress with your policies? If, say that the Republican Party is still in the minority, how are you going to be pushing through all of this?
If it's not there. Well, first, let's talk about how to get there. And then if we fail, then we'll talk about what to do if we fail. Right now, Mainers, not Republicans, but all Mainers, mostly think we're headed in the wrong direction, that we want to change. So the polling is flip who's in power out. That's good. In this elective cycle, we have enough close races where we could definitely win the House and get closer in the Senate. I don't know. It'd be amazing if we got the Senate this cycle. But then the first thing the governor should do, when you're governor, you can put a bill down directly. And I think the first one is a tax cut. And then let them vote on it. And let's identify all those weakly held seats and see if they vote against it. If they vote against that tax cut, we get a great candidate right in those districts. We run someone against them because no one will be happy with them right then. No, we want you to keep us the 5th highest tax load in the country, even though we're the 5th poorest state and no businesses can stay here. That's a winning problem. Nothing to do with the polarizing social issues. That's a clean home run campaign to get those legislative seats. And I think a steady diet of bills that separate the wheat from the chaff and let that chaff get cut away and put new representatives in those seats. That's the program to get the majority. Now, maybe we don't get it. And by the way, in some districts, that might mean we put up an independent. Some places they just squeal when you hear the word Republican, like there's a mouse and they're all jumping on the table. Maybe my town a little bit. But whether we're getting independents or we're getting people that are reasonable in there. Second thing, though, is there's no way that there's going to be a supermajority. So the governor can veto. Right now, if we just stopped the roar of new laws, 3,337 new laws in one Mills administration. Again, bartender, cut me off. I'm saying crazy stuff here, but it's true. That's the thing that the governor can do right away. And then say, I'm going to let one through every month. Let's decide what it's going to be. And let's decide what Republican commercial grow the economy things are going to be in there. And that is the fallback in between winning those seats that I'm absolutely convinced we can win. We lost 14,000 members of the Republican Party from 14 to today. I think I know why. And I don't think doing the same thing harder will fix it. I think if we start being the grow the economy party more narrowly, very focused on that, we'll bring people back into the party. Chris Sununu did it, actually grew membership in the party in his 8 years to where it was one the smallest party to the largest. 3 parties, unenrolled, independent, Republican. He went from smallest to largest in New Hampshire. And I think same playbook, we'll get there.
So recently we had Jason Joyce. He's the new director of advocacy with NEFSA.
Yep.
And he was discussing how the federal mandates are pushing for ropeless lobster gear.
Sure.
So what are your thoughts on that?
It's another example where a group of commissars get together and say, we'll do it better than the market. We'll do it better than the guys who have been out there for 10 generations. We'll fix it. And we won't just propose our ideas and try to get people to follow us. We will just jam our ideas down people's throats using the force of law. And whether that's the Atlantic Fisheries Council membership or following that guidance, or whether it's, even though we're, Every state gets one vote, but we're 90% of the landings. Like, well, how about they can share half a vote? Why on earth are we rolling over for these other states who have anything but their own commercial fishery interests at heart? There's 9 guys there still catching and a couple scallop guys in Connecticut or whatever. That's not the same thing as what we have here. So it's the same deal. Beat back Augusta. In this case, beat back the feds. The feds are encroaching in here. Oh, you're in federal waters. We'll tell you what to do. No, you will not. No, you will not. You make the garden walls and you stay at the walls and we play the game. We, in this case, we fishing community. Already, we've got the great, we should talk about the great Frank Thompson from Vinyl Haven, single-handedly taking his case to the Supreme Court of the United States to get these ridiculous black boxes out of lobster boats. Why the state lets the feds think that they can presume to monitor where everybody goes and what bottom they're using day to day and where their catches are coming from and destroy the competitive advantage that guys have built up over generations. Again, another thing that if you said it in a bar, said that the federal government's not going to share all your secrets and ruin your business. I guess so. I like that we've got a voice now. People have sort of woken up and our Washington group is left and right, come around for the lobstermen. But they're still whispering about, but we should really have some wind farms and we should really have them. And we need to be really clear that the mission, again, remember with the narrow mission, the mission of the DMR is to maximize the profit taken from our waters over the next 50 years. That's the goal. What is the best, biggest, most fruitful economy with the most players allowed to have the American dream that is possible? Now, I say 50 years because you could overfish and kill the game, and no fisherman wants that. I've never met a fisherman who's against the Marine Patrol. Like, no, I know several guys who are total jerks. So I want to make sure somebody's checking up on them if I'm going to play the same game in the same water. But this idea right now that you can look on the DMR website and you can't see that mission. You can't see in any of these agency websites a narrow, simple, humble mission of the government in service of citizens trying to enjoy the American story in Maine. It's never on any of the agency websites.
I guess my biggest concern is listening to the fishermen that the gear, they could get caught up in it and they can drown because that rope could pull them over. It sounds very dangerous, and I'm just concerned that nobody looks at that aspect on the federal government.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also think, of course, that if we started enforcing more safety standards on lobstermen, they'd also kill us. My rule is safety second, because if safety was first, nobody would go to sea in the wintertime. And it's a very rewarding career to have, even though it's got risk, just like timber harvesting, one of the highest engagement jobs. But I think the bigger deal to me is the inflicting of a way to do things by a bureaucrat on the market, as opposed to the market evolving based on what works, and the bureaucrat just keeping the rules fair for everybody. I don't understand the scope creep of our bureaucrats just keeping people out of the water. And Frankie was saying somewhere deep inside, they just don't want us going out in that water and catching stuff anymore.
Well, they kind of did that with electric cars, trying to force electric cars on everybody.
Yeah, jamming down the throat. Oh, you get $6,000 for this versus that, and we're going to build. What is our cost per federally funded charger now? Remember that Biden was going to, we're going to make 1 million chargers, and they'd spent $1 billion, and they got like 9 chargers somewhere. $800 million charger, plug in and enjoy. But it's the same thing. It is wrong of the government to encroach on the free market and force something down the people who own the place's throats. That's wrong. Just like solar power, I believe if we hadn't done that, we would have a fertile, profitable, interesting solar panel business on the roofs of people's houses. If we didn't create this elaborate tax credit net energy billing dance that only the insiders who've got little lobbyists on speed dial can figure out. We've got a couple lobbyists running, by the way, so maybe backup plan, they can help the tax credit junkies get new special treatments. Whenever you make a special treatment game to force free people into doing something, you screw the whole thing up. And I think whether that's solar panels on your houses or electric cars, I think electric cars are amazing. I see yours out here, but they should be amazing because they're amazing, not because Big Brother jams it down your throat. I tell you, you jam world peace down my throat and I'm going to fight you. I just don't like the jamming down the throat.
So you did see my Ford Lightning out there being charged up?
I sure did. And I got a little lightning envy. Yeah. I think it's cool.
Oh, it's a beautiful truck.
It's really, you got 2 dads at the nursery school on Cape. They'd come in, quiet, beautiful thing. I just love them. But I want to love them because I love them. I bought a Tesla. It zips, holy Moses. It's 10 years old. I can't even tell it's not brand new. Good job, Elon. I felt so sheepish when and a special program, you get all this money back and off your bill. And, but you have to sign here that you want to give me the tax credit to go into the... Gee, stop. Just give me the great car. It's enough.
So I do serve on the Maine Association of Realtors Legislative Committee. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the housing crisis in Maine?
I don't want to sound like a broken podcast again, but this is another example of the state encroaching, suffocating the free market, and therefore killing the supply that we need, preventing it from coming into being. We have these government-built housing projects that are easily 50% more per key, per square foot than regular mainstream economy housing stack. The one in Portland's hilarious because all the license plates in the job site are Massachusetts because they make it be only union and we're just not a union place. So the union guys get the job, drive up, and Mainers aren't even getting the work for building these inefficiently. And then you got to be on the commissar's special list of special people who are social justice allowed to get into this apartment. And then you're in a poverty trap apartment when your job, the big job opportunity somewhere else, you lose this free house if you go follow the job opportunity. I mean, all the way from permitting it to building it to using it, it is a disaster. An overreach by Augusta. Oh, I'm the hander outer. I decide who's virtuous enough to get a free house. Shut up. We need to get everybody who's willing to raise the capital to build to come to Maine and build. We should change our building code. We should be the leader in cross-laminated timber construction because we got a few trees. We've got the whole supply chain desperate for more uses, especially in the medium and lower quality cuts of wood. That should all be modern, unique housing experimentation going on in Maine. But instead, we look down our nose and say, you can only build it this way. It's got to have 21-inch thick ceilings. It's got to have a blower test. It's gotta, to the point where Granny can't add a guest house for her son. So the son leaves the state. This is a supply problem. It is self-inflicted. The capital and those hammers and the people willing to do it are there. So the solution is simple. Chase Augusta back out, restructure our permitting process so it's nearly real time, and then say to those people that looked at Maine and said, no, thank you. Come on back. Bring your capital back. Democrats are, we're going to spend $100 million. No, I'm going to spend $200 million. We need $5 billion easily. And there's easily $5 billion worth of capital that would love to build homes in Maine if we weren't looking down our nose at them with every step of the process.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Corenna Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Republican gubernatorial candidate, Jonathan Bush. I heard one of your commercials recently, and you had stated for people not to be worried about you being another Bush.
Right. Yeah,
Do you hear that a lot?
No. Well, what made me record it was going around to these caucuses, especially after the first debate, and big guys going to me, geez, I was all ready to hate you. You're kind of making it more complicated. You're not what I thought you'd be. And of course, the Bushes as a prominent family, people have some opinions, good and bad. 70% of Mainers think that the Bush family has good moral character. But 24% of Mainers think we got in a forever war because we're out of touch or whatever. I love my cousins, all of them, including the ones that were president and governor. My uncle, who's not with us anymore, was a personal hero. But I'm not them at all. I hardly ever went to Texas. I've never been anything to do with the oil business or really any big corporation except the one I started in my basement. So I just lived happily on the outside my whole life. And I think Mainers desperately don't want another insider who sort of got the virus and is in the spaghetti handshake of I'll do you a favor and you'll do each other a favor, whatever it is. And that's not me. And so I'm trying to honor the concern. I think it's a legit concern for people to have about me, but say, buddy, take a look. Look back at what I've done in Maine, what I've done in my life. And this isn't a Texas oil inside Wall Street deal. This is an entrepreneurial story. Started driving an ambulance. I said, why isn't this better run? Ended up running clinics. Why isn't this better run? Ended up doing the back office for clinics. Why isn't this better run? And built a $8 billion company out of it that brought 1,000 jobs to Maine. That's not what people think of. Some people think nice things. Some people think not nice things, but it's not what people think of when they think of a Bush. So now we'll try to get them to wink and giggle and take another look.
Well, speaking of Maine, tell us a little bit about your personal story.
I was one of the Bush summer people in Kennebunkport I guess my grandmother was born in 1900 in Kennebunkport. So they've been carpetbaggers for 125 years. And then when I was 16, I got a job as a boat boy on North Haven Island. And And I said, Jesus, Mom, Dad, we don't need any more T-shirts. Like Kennebunkport's turning into a T-shirt shop with all the big famous cousins who are older, and we're not really part of that. We're just sitting here like a barnacle on the bottom of the bush boat. Let's do our own thing. And they came out and rented whatever year that was, 89, 88. And we said, oh, this is us. So we bought in 99, been building up our little end of the cove over by Turner Farm, whatever that is, 40 some years now. And it's the root of the Bush family soul. So I've got 7 kids, some of them totally grown up. And the one place that they never aren't is on North Haven Island every year. It's where they go to molt and evolve. Of course, in 07, when I saw the opportunity when MBNA sold out, all those credit card processing buildings were empty and all the jobs were gone. I was like, look at this. Fully functioning, resilient, funny, flexible Mainers by the hundreds with nothing to do. I could actually run a business in Maine, have my fondest wish other than, oh boy, lawn, yard. I did all kinds, Moses Barrio, Cape Port Gardens, landscaping, my first backhoe operator opportunity as a kid, all in Maine. But this was like the opportunity to do big boy business in Maine. And it worked. We started with 6. It was a tough battle to get the board to agree. Wait a minute, Maine, what are you talking about? And get the state to give us a window to get in and then start to train people on this new way of operating. But the reward has been over the moon. Even when private equity types bought the company and looked for people to fire, drove profits through the roof, they didn't fire many Mainers. They kept that operation almost the full size it was when I left. So that's been my story. I accident got a peek under the hood back in 2007. The real superpower of Maine is not the beauty and the family ties that we've enjoyed. It's Mainers. It's something about resiliency, good humor, and grit that now is normal, but until 2007, I didn't fully grasp.
Well, we certainly love North Haven. Corinna and I did get engaged on that island a few years back.
Excellent. Faye and I got engaged in Kennebunkport at the outdoor chapel there at St. Anne's, but my first choice would have been... Yes. We were about to meet all those fancy cousins, and Faye was like, if you're going to do this, chop, chop. So I was like, all right, let's do it.
So we also have a small cottage down on Dare Isle, and we're on a point, and we're thinking we could go point to point.
You
Maybe
bet.
Come visit you at Walker's Point.
You bet. Yeah, well, back when old H.W. was alive, he wanted to go everywhere in his boat, and he came to North Haven. In fact, that was when the Marine Patrol had those protector boats, those ribs, with the Targa little wheelhouses, and Barbara wouldn't go in the speedboat out in the ocean. So she came up to Rockland, and the Marine Patrol guys went to get her, and they were back in like 35 minutes. It's like, how did you just take it? Whatever she was then, maybe 78-year-old lady back for. She's like, I didn't feel a thing. I said, oh, someday. If Athena Health ever goes public, I'm buying one of those. And 6 months and 10 minutes after the lockup, I bought that boat, and I've had one ever since. I'll go to your point anytime you want.
We'd love that.
We would love that.
As you're traveling across Maine, what are you hearing from Mainers?
It's really clear. Mainers are really clear. They feel encroached upon. They want Augusta audited and shrunken. Audit it. What's going on? What is this fraud we're seeing? Get to the bottom of it and then shrink it. And then the second thing, of course, is I can't keep paying these taxes higher and higher and higher. Figure out how they go down. And they don't distinguish between property taxes and income taxes. As we've discussed, the state can control income taxes right away. But if we let businesses into these towns, the homeowners' property taxes will go down. But those are the things I'm hearing. There's also a fair amount about the woke agenda, this idea that there should be boys allowed to go in girls' sports if they identify that way, or that the police should not arrest people, or that immigrants somehow get a pass from enforcing the law. There's a lot of this crazy stuff that people are frustrated about, that sort of polls high, that people come up and give me examples. But the big ones are really the shrink Augusta, shrink it back, give us our lives and our opportunity and our American dream back.
So what are your thoughts on ICE?
I think we have to enforce our laws. The things that Donald Trump brought us that we should be grateful for is we can't be a nation if we don't have borders. We can't be a society if we don't have laws. And fairness is the only measure of law enforcement. It's not social justice. It's not fixing something that's wrong in the past by putting your finger on the scale. And then who gets to be the one with the finger? It's my finger that should be on the scale. No, it's me. I'm even more virtuous than you. Well, I'm the Deputy Undersecretary of State, and so I can take someone off the ballot because I'm so virtuous that I know who should be voted for. This race to encroach on our liberties, to me, ICE is swept up in that. It's been dramatized, and maybe the execution on the current, I think Christine Noem was annoying and inappropriate, to be totally honest. But the idea that we might or might not enforce our immigration laws, that was ever a choice, well, it's in that category of the crazy things that just don't make sense.
So what differentiates you from all of the other candidates?
There's three things that are only true about me right now. It may change later, but right now, I'm the only candidate running in either party that's brought 1,000 jobs to Maine, that built it as a playbook, something to be repeated. I believe I'm the only candidate running that's brought other businesses to Maine. I've got at least three notches, three whole companies that are here because of my recruiting them. I'm the only guy running that has spent his career making hard bureaucracies survivable for small businesses. And I like to think of Maine as a centrally, culturally small business state. And I'm not a lobbyist, and I'm not an insider, and I am a competent CEO. I ran something at real scale. Maine Care might be $1 billion or $5 billion or whatever it is. Athena was managing $30 billion a year, and we knew where every penny was at any given time. And that kind of scale experience, really running a big multi-thousand person organization that's information intensive, that's regulation intensive, that's unique to me.
So the primary's in June. Why should people vote for you?
I think we need a competent CEO who is an outsider, who is not in the lobby, favor, spaghetti handshake world, who's got a lot of energy and who believes in the American dream. Every Republican has actually ended up proposing some new program. I want to shrink Augusta, but this program's a really good idea, and I've thought it through, and I think my program, and this is the virus, I think. It gets up into their noses, and they think, in order to be liked, I've got to give something to someone. And what I want to give to people is their freedom to move, their agency, their autonomy. I am very focused on only shrinking. I'm the only candidate, I believe, in either party that says my only agenda is to narrow the scope, shrink the bureaucracy, and then wake up the dead free market around the edges.
So what's the best way for somebody to get involved in your campaign?
JonathanBush.org. Get on it. It's everywhere these days, but if you get on JonathanBush.org and put your email in there, you can be on our list. We've got a great volunteer organization called the 20th of Maine that meets on Mondays. We've got 2 people on our campaign staff living the dream here in Maine with the overhead, and we want you on there. We want you to get on our site, put your email in there, join the 20th, and have a good time bringing the Maine dream back to life.
Republican gubernatorial candidate Jonathan Bush, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it.
I love it. I love the Quirk machine in every respect, especially now this show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites guests and candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. The most important voices aren't always the loudest ones. They're the voices of everyday people, raising families, running businesses, serving their towns. That's who we want to hear from. Share your ideas with us online, and let's make sure those voices are never left out. Find us on Facebook or on X or at qpointpodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.